and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Adrienne Havertz, who is going to explain what's going to happen and then turn it over to her two extraordinary students who are representing Santa Fe Indian School. So with that, let's give a virtual clap. Let's give it up, please, for the Santa Fe Indian School. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hello, thank you for that wonderful welcome. And if I have learned anything in this last year in education and with the community of brilliant, inspired, committed educators and students at the Santa Fe Indian School, it's that we're much more resilient than we knew before. And this has been a year of pivots, about faces, and perseverance. So the two students you're about to learn from are nothing short of exemplary. Sydnie and Jade are students in the program that I coordinate, the Health Careers program at the Santa Fe Indian School. And they are both on their way to college to study and to follow their own unique pathways to careers in healthcare. And these two are going to be future healers. They are going to be future leaders. I've had the privilege of working with them and just seeing how brilliant they are. They've already done things to influence the well-being of their community within our school and beyond. It's hard for me to even talk about it without tearing up because they are so special and bright. And we've been working on this presentation for a while now, a few months, and we're honored to be here. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Sydnie and Jade and acknowledge that all three of us are presenting on Tewa.
Right on.
Okay, so I guess hi everyone. My name is Jade Rael. I'm from Pickers Pueblo, and currently I'm a senior at the Santa Fe Indian School, but I will be going to UCLA this incoming fall. And as Ms. Havertz has mentioned, I am a future healer. So today we'll be going over sovereign medicine and a bit of the connections and clashes between those. So first, we would like a land acknowledgement. Today we are organizing on the Tewa lands of the Taos and Pickers people. And with that, let's get into it. So for a bit of an overview, I will be going over an introduction of what is sovereign medicine. I'll be also dabbling with Western medicine and traditional medicine and what are those. And we'll be going into the connections and clashes of how they're related and a little bit of how they differ also. For Sydnie's part of the presentation, she will be going over her own introduction on what is health equity and inequity. She'll also be going over the social determinants and their impacts on health, herbal and home-based remedies, and a cure for health inequities. And lastly, she'll be going over the support of Indigenous peoples in healthcare facilities. So first, for our introduction, what is sovereign medicine? So sovereign medicine in this context are the joint forces of both modern and traditional medicine practiced in Indigenous communities. It's important to keep this in mind because of how it affects traditional healers and Indigenous patients. And we kind of ask you throughout this presentation to kind of, think about it yourself. How can both traditional and Western medicine become better integrated within your own communities? And also how do we establish a relationship of understanding between the two? So into Western medicine and I guess what it is. In this context, Western medicine is medicine practiced here in the West, specifically in the Americas in present day. Western medicine often changes with new developments and is not really directly attached to any particular religion or spirituality. But I guess one of the flaws is that it can be an issue because many traditional communities have additional considerations when treatment occurs and spirituality needs that usually or may be ignored in a Western dominant facility. So for traditional medicine, and I guess what that is, in this context, traditional medicine is medicine practiced in Indigenous communities, again, most specifically here in the Americas, that has a bit of a historical and spiritual significance kind of specific to their practitioners and their patients. Because of its importance to Indigenous communities, we kind of ask you, I guess mentioned that it would be a benefit to traditional members if a cultural consideration was given as they were given treatment. We ask you also, like, is it not a right for community members to have access to culturally sensitive treatment? And you can create your own opinions on that. So on the connections and clashes, we'll be going over, I guess, how they're related and how do they differ. So both Western and traditional medicines are effective practices today. Both Western and traditional medicine's ultimate goal is to heal its patients. And usually, both Western and traditional medicine is practiced by like trained individuals. So like in the Western society, we have doctors or people given certificates. And in our traditional societies, we have like shamans or medicine men. So for Western medicine, it doesn't really have any like cultural sensitivity, and often it can ignore specific needs of tribal members. But Western medicine is equipped to adapt in modern times, being that it is essentially a modern invention. While traditional medicine carries a bit of a stigma in Western society, with many qualified practitioners kind of being aware of its importance if they're not directly in our Indigenous communities. But traditional medicine is more heavily rooted within our history, and that can be sometimes unannounced to modern times, so it's, I guess, a little bit forgotten. So, and I will be presenting or shifting off to Sydnie. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me and see my screen okay?
Loud and clear and beautiful. Thanks, Sydnie.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Unsengiti umbiakandi nari hawa sokua pere povi na pohore owinge herat towinamu. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sydnie Pino, and I am from the Pueblos of San Ildefonso and Taos. As mentioned before, I am a senior with the graduating class of 2021 at the Santa Fe Indian School, and as Ms. Harvest mentioned, I am a part of the Dream Makers program and the Health Careers Academy at the Santa Fe Indian School, and I am a future leader. Upon completion of high school, I wish to attend the University of New Mexico, where I can further my education in hopes of becoming a pediatric nurse. So without further ado, shifting gears a little bit, I'm going to talk about health equity along with social determinants and health inequity. Introduction: what is health equity and inequity? Health equity is ensuring that everyone has equal opportunities to be healthy and live a happy and healthy life, regardless of who they are or where they come from. It is also equal and quality healthcare for all. Health inequity is differences in health and health resources. It derives from social determinants of health. The main problem with health inequity and health equity is that, in simple terminology, health equity is defined as equal and quality healthcare for all. It generally circulates around the idea of universal healthcare and is meant to provide medical access to every individual, regardless of who they are or where they come from. It is a very broad issue and is one that is not talked about very often. This issue has and continues to bring forth great struggle to many of those who seek quality and proper healthcare in various healthcare facilities. With this being said, it is those of low income, such as the Pueblo communities, and even those of minorities who struggle with receiving adequate healthcare in healthcare facilities, which poses a lot of great issues in healthcare settings, such as illnesses, conditions, diseases, and even resulting in fatality and mortality. Taking a look at health equity, we will explore some of the history and some of the main points in which various historical events took place impacting health equity. Beginning with the 1921 Snyder Act, the Snyder Act provides authority for the expenditure of such funds as Congress may appropriate for the benefit, care, and assistance to Indians throughout the United States. So what the Snyder Act basically was that it was a government's promise and almost like a deal that they made to ensure that they were providing various resources, including healthcare to Indigenous communities and federally recognized tribes within their reservations. Next, we will take a look at the 1955 Ihs Establishment. This was the establishment of Indian health services on federally recognized Native American tribes on their reservations that provided access to healthcare and just healthcare resources in general. Next, we will take a look at the 1976 Indian Healthcare Improvement Act. The Act implements the federal responsibility for the care and education of the Indian people by improving the services and facilities of federal Indian health programs. So like the Snyder Act, the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act was a promise by the federal government to federally recognized Indian tribes to be able to provide education and healthcare services to Native Americans on their reservations and being able to grant them these resources that they needed. Next, we will take a look at the 1985 Heckler Report. The Heckler Report is released, which documented the existence of health disparities among racial and ethnic minorities in the United States. So the Heckler Report was a very big deal because it was the first attempt to address health disparities within minority groups, which specifically impacted Native American and Indigenous communities as well, being that they are minority groups. Next, we will take a look at the 2003 the Healthcare Equality and Accountability Act. This act passes to improve minority health and healthcare and eliminate racial and ethnic disparities in health and healthcare. So like the Heckler Report, the Healthcare Equality and Accountability Act helped to bring awareness to health disparities and just kind of fight against the injustices in healthcare systems toward ethnic and racial groups. Social determinants and their impacts on health. What are social determinants? So social determinants are social and economic factors or conditions that influence differences in health status for a specific group or people. They are generally circulated around factors such as race, ethnicity, education, income, social status, environment, employment, and health insurance, and etc. And social determinants, many individuals don't fall within the expectations just the expectations of social determinants, which poses a lot of great stresses and a lot of great struggles for various groups of people, especially minorities in healthcare facilities when trying to be able to receive adequate healthcare in these facilities. The effects of social determinants on Native communities. So with taking a look at the current state of the issue, with this being the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of times within this pandemic that a lot of social determinants within healthcare settings were revealed. And with this being one of them close to home here in New Mexico is within the Laguna and Acoma Pueblos. What had happened a few months back was there was some controversy that took place between the Acoma and Laguna Pueblos, allowing for the shutdown and lack of funding of one of their main hospitals, which was the Acoma Condencito Laguna Healthcare Center. And with what had happened was, again, there was a lack of funding by the government, which posed for the hospital to shut down. And this was a great struggle for those of Acoma and Laguna Pueblos because this hospital was their main source of healthcare, and it was very close to home for these individuals to be able to receive their healthcare needs. And being that the hospital closed down, it allowed for them to have to travel outside of their communities quite a distance to either the communities of Albuquerque or Grants. And it was a very frustrating time for both the Acoma and Laguna Pueblos. And as Sanchu mentions in this quote, I honestly don't know where we are supposed to go for health issues of dental issues anymore. I'm scared to reach out to other hospitals because I don't have health insurance. And as mentioned by Saracino as well, that was kind of our lifeline. We didn't have to go very far for healthcare, and awareness needs to be made that people do live in rural New Mexico and we need healthcare. So as we can see with these quotes, the social determinants played a huge factor with these communities during the COVID-19 pandemic, being that many individuals didn't have healthcare and were scared to go into other healthcare facilities and just not being able to have that resource that they need, especially in the time of need and a time of crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic. Herbal and home-based remedies, a cure for health inequities. How can herbal and home-based remedies be a source of healing? Herbal and home-based remedies can be a source of healing by being able to have quick access to resources and various things for medicinal purposes in a time crunch or in the event that you're not able to see your doctor right away or be able to go to a healthcare facility right away. The purpose of herbal and home-based remedies is just for a temporary cure, maybe for illnesses such as the common cold, sore throat, itchy throat, digestion, immunity. However, herbal and home-based remedies necessarily aren't meant for other conditions such as cancers. So if using herbal and home-based remedies, my personal suggestion would be to ensure that you are consulting with your doctors and ensuring that taking herbal and home-based remedies is the right approach, and being knowledgeable of when it is appropriate to use and when they are not appropriate to use. So this year, through the Santa Fe Indian School, I worked on my senior honors project that focused on health equity for low-income Native American communities. In hopes of addressing health inequities and health disparities, I conducted a community health outreach on Friday, March 19, 2021, that was a virtual online learning experience that was conducted through Zoom. In hopes of preparation for the senior project, a flyer was sent out via social media to spread the word about the event. After or attached to the flyer was a link for a Google form to register, where participants could register for the event, and upon registration, a Zoom link was sent out to those who wished to participate. So within the community outreach, I had 2 presenters, 1 elder and 1 youth from Taos Pueblo, who presented on herbal and home-based remedies. I chose to choose an elder and the younger generations just to kind of hear various different perspectives from different generations, just to kind of give my audience an idea and be able to hear from both perspectives. So again, it was an online virtual learning experience where it was very interactive. The participants interacted with the presenters and asked various questions. And there was also a demonstration that I conducted where I demonstrated how to make a home cough syrup out of apple cider vinegar, honey, and lemon juice. And it was just an overall great experience, not only for myself, but for my participants, in hopes of bringing awareness and sharing information about health disparities and inequities. Again, this connected to my bigger project goal to explore and share solutions for home-based health for Native individuals facing issues of access to healthcare because of health inequities. And the reason I chose to do this community outreach was to be able to provide the information and educate my community members, not only my community members, but all Indigenous communities, about the issues of health inequities and health disparities, and be able to bring awareness and educate individuals so that they can be advocates for themselves in health care settings and facilities. In conclusion, this was my solution of how to address health inequity issues in my community through health sovereignty, and it is just one example. I also studied examples from cultures around the world facing issues similar to these, such as the countries of Egypt and sub-Saharan Africa, just to kind of see the bigger issues of systemic change to address inequities as well. I hope you are all inspired to ask how you can create solutions in your communities and healthcare systems too.
Have further conclusions and a bit of a thank you, some acknowledgements, and some resources. So thank you, Sydnie. So here are the research publications that Sydnie had for her SHP, which is still ongoing, and you guys should check her out if you have the time. And here are some of our resources. If you'd like to learn more or support sovereign medicine, there's a few places you can actually do that. So first, there's a Native Health Initiative, which me and Sydnie have the honor of being a part of. There's also the Institute of American Indian Arts, which has their own presentations, kind of similar to sovereign medicine, called 4 Directions Projections. And there's also the Urban Indian Health Institute, where you can also learn more about supporting sovereign medicine. And I guess for our final thank yous, if you have any questions, here are our emails right here. And thank you so much for your time and attention, and for just being here. I think your space and taking your time here shows that I don't know, we're capable of change. So with that, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Sydnie, and also Jade, and my apologies too for jumping in on that. This is that wonderful time, and thank you for such a powerful presentations. As you were both speaking, I had messages, text messages, emails, wanting to know you for this incredible, not only research that you've been doing, but you're absolutely inspiring. So with that, it is Q&A time, and I'm also going to go off the screen as well. But if you would like to ask a question, I'm going to get you to raise your virtual hand, and then what will happen is I'll call on you and someone will take you off mute for a question or a comment you might have for either Jade or Sydnie or both of them with this extraordinary work and research that they've been doing on sovereign medicines that they have blessed us with, and how that all looks. And look, we've got one, Tiffany, if you'd like to kick us off with a question.
Hi there. Thank you, Elena. I am so impressed and in extreme gratitude to all of you. I would like to, I want to invite first, Adrian, I'd like you and these two amazing students to come present at the Behavioral Health Services Division as soon as possible, and possibly to the Human Services Department. This was remarkable. And I would like to know if you could wave a magic wand and do anything in behavioral health for New Mexico, what would you do? I'd really like to hear from these Jade and Sydnie. What would you do? If you could do anything for this system, what would it be?
That is such a hard question. I believe education is pretty much the one power in all. And if I could wave a magic wand, I would probably do my best to make education available to everyone. I believe so much that people need to understand, and I think that the miscommunication derived from differing life experiences is what creates these problems and these issues, because not all of us are aware of the context behind another individual. So that's what I would do.
Yeah. Thank you. Sydnie, what would you do if you could do anything to change what it is? What would you do?
So when you had asked this question, I kind of had a couple light bulbs. This year, I've actually taken a community health workers class, which is pretty closely related to behavioral health. Also, my mother, she worked in behavioral health for a few years. So with this being said, I kind of think encouraging and promoting client advocacy would be very important. Just being able to, allow these individuals to speak up on behalf of themselves. And also, if I had a magic wand, I'd primarily focus on mental health as well, because mental health is very important and such a great factor for various individuals, especially those within the behavioral health systems. So that's what I would do.
Hey, Adrian, send me a date and time.
Definitely. That's such an honor and a wonderful invitation. If I might respond, these two are answering you. They're involved in so many other things too. Like they mentioned, Native Health Initiative, and Jade is an active member of our Green Team and our Born Braves Club, which is an LGBTQIA club or a GSA. And in terms of all that behavioral stuff, I think that, what's such a huge piece of community medicine in the Native tradition, from what I've observed and learned, is inclusion and bringing people together. I don't know if you two have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I think the greatest power of Indigenous communities is the fact that we're so integrated within one another. And that comes from class, but I think with the inclusion of everyone, we have a greater power of just honoring our traditions first off, and just taking time to understand one another and the difficulties that each of us face. But being that all of you guys are here right now, I'm curious about how you can make change within your own communities. I think efforts like these are what is important, especially to pretty much any community, including Indigenous ones. So again, I thank you so much for being here and allowing us youth to kind of, I guess, give our own perspectives, because we really are in this together as human beings on, this one floating rock in the middle of space.
Right on.
And just kind of going off of based what Jade had said, I kind of think it's important for us as youth to be able to get our voices out there and speak on behalf of these global issues. Sometimes, as youth, we're kind of told to be seen rather than be heard. And, sometimes our thoughts aren't really taken into consideration, but just being able to be here and present alongside Jade shows that we as youth are able to take on these leadership roles and address global issues.
And females too.
Beautiful. Both of you, extraordinary medicine. I'm not a teacher or anything with the Santa Fe Indian School, but if I was, I'd be about to explode just with you being the great examples of what's getting pumped out of the school for tomorrow's future. But in saying that, we've got Amber with her hand up. So Amber, I've unmuted you. And also we've got a lot of people in the room. It's not a time to be shy. If you have questions, please raise your hand in the actions, or I can have a look through the screen if you're dying to ask a question for these extraordinary role models and leaders from the Santa Fe Indian School, Jade, and also Sydnie. Amber, what's that wonderful question you have for these extraordinary young women?
Well, I want to say first, thank you very much for your work, and may you be blessed in the continuation of your work. It's really beautiful work. I'm actually interested in seeing once again the connections, the networking connections for those resources that you posted, Sydnie, at the very end. And I think that network connection is huge in this, because there's a lot of network connection for Western medicine practices, and there needs to be more connection for people and more resources for people to access. So if you could at some point post those again, because I wasn't fast enough with the pen. My question for you would be, what would be needed to have maybe, I want to call them clinics, I guess, available in each village that would be able to address all levels of the need for the health of the people in the Pueblo? And, is that something that could happen? Or are there places where for example, the spiritual health or the emotional health of people really does need to remain separate for traditional methods? And what do you see and what's needed?
So first, being able to establish like clinics and stuff within our Pueblo communities, it can be a little hard sometimes, just given resources and finances and stuff. But ultimately, I think it starts with being able to just kind of share information and resources with individuals, and being able to educate our community members and our tribal leaders with information and how we can, I guess, go about addressing some of these issues, and just kind of educating one another about these issues. I think is kind of the first step towards primarily gaining that big goal, because ultimately I kind of think being able to establish clinics or healthcare facilities within our communities to be able to address all of these issues would be really important. And there again, it also comes with the doctors as well and the physicians, being able to come into these public communities and be able to be culturally competent and be aware that, you're dealing with culturally diverse individuals who are very fond of their traditions and their cultures. So being able to be aware of that and being able to, again, be culturally competent and be able to work with these individuals, I think is going to be a very important factor to stopping health inequities or any health disparities, because that can play a huge factor as well.
I think you know, when you work with Dr. Flegg, Sydnie and Jade, Dr. Flegg is one of their mentors at the Native Health Initiative. He's a professor through the University of New Mexico. He's a non-Native man. His wife is Native. He's a father of several children and, you know, like definitely an intersectional, multicultural leader and kind of father figure in our community. He's taking UNM students all the way through to become surgeons and doctors. And then with Native Health Initiative, he's mentoring students of younger ages too. He has a nonprofit running medicine as well. And he shows a model of care that is culturally sensitive and inclusive to his patients as a family medicine doctor. So, and Sydnie and Jade, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he only works on tribal lands, but he sees people from a variety of cultures, but is really teaching students how to embody cultural sensitivity to all cultures and especially to the indigenous cultures in New Mexico. Would you say that's true? Right. So you can, what I see from that model and what I see our students learning with Dr. Flegg is that you can be inclusive and creative space that feels safe based on your way of relating and being in relationship with others, whether you're in their tribal community or not. I don't know if you agree with me, because that was kind of the question, right? Does it need to be separate or can we do it in any space?
Yeah, I totally agree. Meeting Dr. Flegg was probably one of the most interesting experiences I've had with any physician that I've met. And I think also being mindful of like your own abilities and curiosities and kind of attending to those is what is super important, because Dr. Flegg does all of his work with like an extreme passion, and you can see his excitement in Native youth like us. And I think due to that, that's what makes him such an effective mentor. And because of his understanding of Indigenous and non-Indigenous cultures, he's kind of been able to serve as like a bridge in a sense of holding both of those worlds and attending to both in a culturally sensitive and I would say an extremely effective manner.
She's so hey, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you both, all three of you, for that. I'm just going to go into our participants. We've got J.D., Richard, Brenton. What would you like to ask? Thanks for being here.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, here in Montreal, I'm a peer counselor here in mental health, and usually when you go to the hospital, when you have a physical or mental, they just give you pills. It's funny to say, but we live in a physical world where you can touch trees and everything, but there's also a spiritual world. It's 50-50, like day, night, cold, hot. So it's very important. It's like the spirit, so you have to also both the physical and the spirit. So how do I say? You have to work. If you can't work on one, if you can't work on the other, I don't know if you sorry, but I'm just saying it's very important. Like the mental health, it touches everybody. We all have a physical and mental health, but it has to be. We have to really work on that also, because we get detached from we're all this COVID and all this stuff, but we get detached from the earth. We have to go back to the earth, back to the and get back in contact. Well, anyway, sorry.
Yes, of course. It's actually interesting that you mentioned that. So Sydnie mentioned her Seniors Honors Project. It's one of our, core classes at the Santa Fe Indian School that we perform for our senior year. And I had the honor of doing my Seniors Honors Project last year, which kind of dabbles into that. I identify as a urban native, and I believe a lot of the peers that I have who do struggle with mental health are what I call uprooted. And that's kind of a concept that's, I guess, a little bit hard to explain in this manner. But I actually might provide a link to that later on if I'm able. But I think that being disconnected from, our roots, whether that be our, the earth specifically, or our families, or our cultures, or pretty much whatever, binds you to this world, is almost like I don't know, like our spiritual ties in a sense. And when we lose that, our entire, I would say, just like core kind of becomes unstable, and that affects your physical health in a lot of ways. I personally felt this through my college applications. I was super stressed out, and I've never really had a period of intense stress, but I saw it in my skin, which was the weird part because I normally have super clear skin. So I like you mentioning that, and thank you so much for mentioning that, because taking mind of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health, because with a healthy mind, you have a healthy body, and those kind of coincide. So thank you again for mentioning that. And that's, I don't know, something I think should be valued.
Jade's not really tooting her horn loudly enough here, but she did her senior honors project video on this topic of uprosion. Not only is Jade really obviously very brilliant in science and in the actual health and medical field, she takes to it so easily, and I know she'll be a great healer, but she's also a very gifted communicator. And she created this video that's an animation with the narration and illustration around this very topic. And that piece of like, you can't take the mental health and the spiritual part out of a body, and what it does to be disconnected from place. Yay, there it is. You got to watch that. And Jade, you are one of those people that I marvel at you, and I go, what is she going to do with all of those gifts?
That is beautiful. Thank you. I feel so honored to be in your presence at this time. We've got Summer. Summer, thank you so much for being with us. Summer has been emailing me back and forth this morning. I am so happy that you're in. Summer, what question would you like to ask these extraordinary young women of today?
I'm fangirling over here, like big time, like as somebody who's very much connected to youth, and youth having their voice, and having been a youth who wanted to be able to use her voice more, and being someone who walks with her ancestors indigenously. I'm just so very incredibly proud of the work you've done, and of the work that you're committed to doing in the future. So thank you both for being who you are to the people, because you know desperately that we need leaders like you and healers like you. So thank you for that, and keep doing what you're doing.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. Thanks for that, Summer, and so grateful that you were able to get in. Elder Evelyn, who did our beautiful blessing us in for today's Indigenous Healing Festival, has a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Sydnie and Jade. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. I'd like to commend my niece. Sydnie is my niece. Yeah, it's in the family. The genes are in the...
It sure is.
Yes. So I want to say kunda. And I want to say beloved to each and every one of you. Jade, kunda woha, for also sharing. And it's really important that you're bringing all this up to the surface, because just like you were saying earlier about all the different ways of how we can take care of each other's, even with the burden, the same thing. Families are headed to the hospitals right away, and we know burden from years back, generations, was also a home burden, and that's also coming to the surface. So I want to say kunda and acknowledging you and what you shared from your voice, from your heart. You are healers, because the day that you were brought into this world, the day that you were both, each and every one of us were conceived, we were all meant to be here. We were all meant to take care of each other's, and now is the time. So I want to say kunda for each and every one of you for acknowledging. And so proud of you, Sydnie. I know you're a senior, and we'll be looking forward. And yes, thank you, Jade, too, also for sharing and the wisdom that you have. You are our next leaders. You are our next leaders that will take on the responsibility. I mean, maybe responsibility is big and heavy, but that's part of where it's going to be help coming forward. So, Kunda, thank you. Love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much just for being here.
Kunta woha saya.
Kunda.
There is a lot of love in the room and a lot of love going here. And Ms. Love, I am so grateful that someone unmuted you. Please share away.
Actually not sure why my hand went up. I don't have a question, but since by accident this happened, I just want to say how proud I am of Sydnie and Jade. And I was going to just send you guys text messages, but now I'll just tell you in front of everyone how proud I am of you and how you're representing the Santa Fe Indian School, and I'm just so excited to see what you're going to do. So I didn't have a comment, but I guess I'm lucky that someone unmuted me. Congratulations, you guys. It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you
Ms.
so
Love.
much for that, Bridget. And, I love that thing where we don't know why, yet we get these opportunities. So I'm really grateful. Nothing ever happens by accident. JD, what did you want to share?
Oh, actually, it was just a comment. It's just like when you plant a tree, if you cut the roots of it, if you cut a tree, you kill the roots. The tree dies, but the roots is our customs, our spirituality. So you can't just cut the tree. You need the roots. So the roots goes into the ground and it's everywhere. So if you cut the tree, you kill the roots. Well, so the roots are our culture, our spirit, everything. So it's very important. We have this. We're connected all together. So.
Beautiful. Thank you for that comment. And then we've got Linda Young. You're unmuted, so please ask away.
Yes. Dan sa to tanin na naskuman ebe big squig. We just got so I'm very thankful to hear you share. I'm from Canada. I'm from Treaty 6 territory. I'm Plains Cree White dialect speaker. And I wanted to, when I was 14, we used to call her Granny, said to me, I want you to stay with me for 2 summers or for 2 years. And because she said, I want you to understand the medicines that we use, but you can't understand them unless you watch each one for 2 years. So you go through those seasons and you see them, you know when to pick them, you know how to use them, how to care for them. So I wondered, is that a possibility for you in the work that you do? Because I feel so strongly that part of the way that we can understand Western medicine is through knowing who we are ourselves ever so deeply, so that we have the strength and the power to be able to walk in the world, the Western world, without ever doubting yourself. And I feel that you are like that already, but I wonder if there is a possibility for you to study with your elders or medicine people that can show you these ways as well. Thank you.
I thank you for sharing your experience and just kind of seeing how you had mentioned how you spent those 2 summers or those 2 years, looking at the plants and the herbs and stuff. And personally for me, with doing this project, this is kind of my first look into herbal and home-based remedies. I don't have all the entire experience with a lot of these things, but I do wish to further my knowledge with that. And maybe, going on with my research and a lot of my, my relations with herbal medicines, maybe that's something that I could look into, This is just kind of my start, so thank you for sharing that, and I'll take that into consideration moving forward.
I just wanted to say that in our program, we have a lot of freedom to bring in speakers and presenters to give the students experiential learning. I mean, this past year has been all virtual because of the pandemic, but we're always looking. It's somewhat tricky because it's, you know, even between tribes. The Santa Fe Indian School represents the 19 pueblos and more tribal affiliations. So it's not as easy as just bringing that into a classroom. You know, it might be that we need to find those very special sacred mentorships, and we would love to do that. And as a non-Native person coming in and working with Native youth and communities, I always just generally, I ask very, very, very conscientiously, and I think an invitation is generally better than me going out and seeking things like that. So if anyone that's listening today has connections to Indigenous leadership or healers that you think would want to connect with youth who do want to go into the pathways of healthcare careers and they want to bring in their Indigenous wisdom, and you didn't know we were trying to bring them up the right way, we're definitely interested in that. But we don't want to go about it without very, very, very careful hands and respect for ancestors and tradition. So that is there. We are interested. We just don't go out with a megaphone asking for it. The other thing I wanted to say before we ended was that Bridget Love, who spoke very briefly, was is the one that created this program. And our program is funded through UNM and the Indian School. And there are several sites around the state that do this Health Career Opportunities program. But I want to acknowledge her brilliant work because we're the only one in the state that I know of that's also creating pathways for these students to go in and get certificates to enter the healthcare field before graduation from high school. No one else is really, that this grant works with, is doing that. So we have, you know, clubs where the students can explore their interests. They can do it in 8th grade health and 9th and 10th grade in this club. And then 10th through 12th grade, they're taking prerequisites, co-requisites, and college level courses to get certificates and really be ready to enter the field as modern Western healthcare providers. And, you know, right at age 18, 17 or 18, and then bring that wisdom in with them to of their communities. So we're doing everything we can to integrate those perspectives and give them an economic and financial footing to be able to earn, you know, money and make a career. Because that's part of it too. Wellness includes that financial wellness. We want them to get that. As we integrate old ways and new, we want our students to be completely empowered, aware. We want, the sky's the limit for them. We're trying to give them every opportunity they can before they leave our doors of the Indian School.
Thank you so much for that. We have got the 2-minute warning before everyone comes back. We've got Kari Dallas with your hand up. You will be our last comment question for these extraordinary young women. Kari, it's your floor now.
Comment about the herbalism, the ancient indigenous herbalism, the last speaker who talked about her grandmother's direction, advice, and learning. Currently, I've been in that mode of learning our indigenous plants, medicines, and there's so many. Going to elders and asking, or herbalists and asking, has been interesting as well, in that there's that issue of trust or mistrust or historical trauma associated with the boarding school or any kind of institution. And so I think that the teachers have a good heart, and that, you know, the words that you're speaking talk of respect, and yet, you know, if you look on the other side of the wall or flip the coin, all the good words, you know, there's still that huge cloud or that iceberg, you know, underneath that really speaks to the leeriness of going into an institution to teach such things. So just wanted to really bring that to everyone's attention. And for the young girls, you know, sometimes you just have to walk, you know, leave the academic. I know when I was in school in psychology, I was like learning all these theories, and it was interesting how I would say, oh, our indigenous people know that. Oh, we did that. You know, why is this theorist getting his name put on there? And, you know, I would get confused, and I had to go to Sweat Lodge and the prayers. So it was something I did on my own, and I have to go to the Sweat Lodge and ask for help, ask for direction, ask for, you know, help me to understand what I'm learning in the four walls compared to a ceremonial space. So again, I just want to encourage the young ladies to, as well, journey out, and your education is sometimes not in the four walls, but it could be out in the cornfield, it could be out in the woods, it could be out in the hills, it could be out in the desert. That's where the medicines are. And you will learn, from your Indigenous elders who sometimes are hesitant to go into those four walls of an institution. I don't mean to degrade it or say anything bad about it, but that's the reality of the historical trauma. Thank you for this time.
Thank you so much for your words, Carrie. I want to take this time and opportunity to firstly thank this incredible teacher, Miss Adrienne Havitz, but particularly, and this gives me hope. You're our future of tomorrow. I'm just going to finish with one word before we go out. Is there anything that we need to do that will help our youth of today with when you're looking at not only sovereign medicines, but the things that you've said? Just a short comment from either of you, both of you, and then we're going to close this out with our next section.
I ask all of you just to let us take space, ask a question. I guess you're just people. A lot of us youth are still afraid to take the first step. And with support from people we know and our elders, I feel like we build that confidence to start making a change and start doing things like this, because I would not be here were it not for the SFIS staff who so amazingly supported me throughout my journey.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to thank everyone for being here and for your kind and beautiful words to Jade and I. And thank you for all the support, Ms. Harvitz and the SFIS staff and Indigenous Ways for allowing us to be here. I think primarily, just being able to spread the awareness and being able to educate and help one another to make the big change and make the big difference is what's really important, especially now during this time. Just unity and being able to come together is what's going to be important to help us bring awareness and get through this all. So again, thank you everyone, and if any of you have any further questions, feel free to contact Jade and I to our emails. We'll put those in the chat again, and thank you all.
Woo!
All right.
Let's please give it up for the incredible Sydnie and also Jade blessing us in the circle with sovereign medicines. Thank you so much for that incredible wisdom that you shared with us.